Veterans flood Beijing in reported nationwide protest. Return of the People's Commune, expert exposes the true intent of the CCP. 7 gray rhinos arrive, China on the brink of a significant financial collapse. Terrifying tornado strikes Shandong, hundreds of casualties reported. Philippines demands Beijing pay $1 million in damages over South China Sea clash. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Veterans flood Beijing in reported nationwide protest. On July 3, Sun Haiying, a well-known Chinese film and TV actor, posted a video on X platform saying, on July 2, 2024, veterans from various parts of the country, unable to secure proper resettlement, went to Beijing to petition en masse. The video reveals numerous individuals, predominantly male, in various military uniforms and some in civilian attire, filling a road in a long queue. Police were present to maintain order, directing them to stand to the side to avoid disrupting traffic. Some were holding flags, others banners, and a few wore red armbands. It appears the veterans were organized into groups by region, with flags stating youth dedicated to national defense and specifying their origins, such as demobilized volunteers from Chengda, Hebei, demobilized volunteers from Tangshan, Hebei, military to civilian volunteers from Homa, Shaanxi, retired veteran rights representative from Dacheng, Hebei, and more. Several banners declared, "Youth dedicated to national defense, where's our resettlement?" Some banners were partially unreadable, stating phrases like "once defended the home and country, now fallen." "Implement military to civilian policies, restore our status." "We can't afford medical care, we can't support our families." "Unemployed in Jiangsu." Another user named Luo Xiang also shared the video, explaining that many veterans are allocated quotas for local job placements. However, due to local government corruption, these positions are often taken by others' family members. As a result, many veterans who were supposed to be resettled remain without placement. Luo Xiang noted that this inability to resettle all veterans leads to their petitions and exemplifies why authoritarian and militaristic states fail. Overwhelmed by their own excessive control, they eventually collapse under their own weight. It is important to note that for the video mentioned above, the veracity of the event's content, including the timing, location, and specific details such as the causes and consequences, cannot currently be confirmed. Reacting to the veterans' protests, a user named Lucy said, "These guys cause a stir every time, and then they get a big handout. Basically, they're living off a monthly payment of 3,000 yuan, about $412 and 75 cents, without even working. It used to be way less. No wonder there are veteran petitions popping up all over the country. What other protest group gets treated this well? It's clear, they're just the CCP's lapdogs." Another user commented, "Trust in the CCP, and this is the result. These SS-like troops, are you truly defending your homeland? Who are you actually confronting now, your enemies or your masters? It's pitiful, yet they do not deserve sympathy." Other users remarked, "If they do not overthrow the system, then they absolutely deserve what happens to them, because they have previously stood up for this system, protected it, and have worshipped, assisted, and supported the evil growth of this system until they completely disregard human beings. The CCP is now completely paralyzed and brain dead." There have also been collective petitions by retired veterans in Hunan, China. According to Radio Free Asia, on July 16, 2018, retired veterans from various parts of Hunan together with veterans of 2 services, and laid-off veterans from the 4 major banks gathered at the entrance of the Hunan Provincial Department of Civil Affairs to demand their rights. On that same day, veterans from Shandong planned to petition in Beijing, but were obstructed by police at the train station. The National Bureau of Letters and Calls in Beijing is consistently crowded, now witnessing petitions not just from veterans but also from police officers. Recently, a video circulated online showing a disabled police officer from the Criminal Investigation Brigade of the Public Security Bureau of Huludao City, Liaoning Province, seeking help online under his real name. He claimed that his medical expenses from a work-related injury over the years have gone unreimbursed, and that he and his family were roughly handled by interceptors while trying to petition for rights in Beijing, resulting in his family members being thrown to the ground. Human rights activist Hu Jia, in an interview with Voice of America in 2021, described China as a society governed by individuals, not by the rule of law. He recounted an encounter outside the petitioning department for central and national organs in Beijing with an elderly man, nearly 90 years old, who was hunched over and using a walking stick, and who had been engaging in marathon petitioning for over 40 years. Hu Jia noted that the cases typically brought forward by petitioners from various regions mostly involve local officials and often remain unresolved for extended periods. This is because, according to Hu Jia, the CCP's petitioning institutions, courts, and local officials are closely interconnected and operate in collusion. Return of the People's Commune, expert exposes the true intent of the CCP. The Chinese Communist Party previously implemented the People's Commune system towards the end of the 1950s. This system ultimately resulted in an economic downturn and a halt in industrial activities, leading to the starvation and death of tens of millions of people. Presently, the People's Commune has made a quiet resurgence. A recent post by Rhinos Media on the X platform highlighted that the Chinese Communist Party enacted the Rural Collective Organization Law, which is set to be officially implemented on May 1, 2025. There are subtle signs suggesting the revival of the old serfdom system, which previously enslaved the populace. Several local governments have already prepared small to large fields reform intention commitment letters, indicating a move back towards the People's Commune. Simultaneously, the CCP has also been promoting collective canteens recently. Although it is claimed that each meal costs only 1 to 2 yuan, from 0.14 to 28 cents, enabling people to avoid cooking at home, Rhinos Media argues that this is not significantly different from the People's Commune of the 1950s. The user emphasized that the severe lessons taught by the People's Commune remain clearly in the memory of the Chinese people. Initially, the collective canteens will have sufficient food, but after several years, the situation may deteriorate to widespread starvation and instances of cannibalism. Additionally, the CCP government has also pushed policies focused on the mass destruction of land ownership certificates held by the populace. The user suggests that the Chinese people should urgently begin storing food, as the days of having enough to eat may be numbered. Another X platform user, News Investigation, shared a video produced by China's People's Daily. In the video, a young girl, approximately 10 years old, continuously extols the virtues of the People's Commune, prompting him to remark on how terrifying it is that it's really coming back. Many netizens consider the CCP's approach highly immoral, criticizing its use of uninformed children to promote serfdom. Some plainly state that regardless of how many hundreds of millions might starve in China, it won't affect the luxurious lives of the communist officials. A majority of netizens agree that from any perspective, the People's Commune has indeed made a return to China. The CCP seeks to strengthen control over rural areas through the People's Commune. In his program, the well-known Canadian commentator Shandong discussed the Rural Collective Organization Law, stating that the CCP's implementation of this policy is aimed at strengthening control over rural areas and is also a part of maintaining stability. He further analyzed that the reason the CCP is doing this is due to the significant importance of rural areas. Approximately half of China's population and more than half of its land are located in rural regions. For the CCP, controlling big cities is not challenging, as most inhabitants are middle-class or wage earners who are relatively powerless and fragmented. Some of them have been successfully brainwashed, while others have been successfully intimidated, making them easier to control. However, Shandong points out, rural and township areas present different challenges. The population there is vast and the mountains are high and the emperor is far away, meaning the central government's influence does not easily reach these areas. Consequently, small groups and organizations that may resist the central authority can easily form. They establish their own ecosystems, which could potentially weaken the Communist Party's power, and this is the CCP's greatest fear. Shen highlighted that the CCP's power is primarily concentrated in the big cities, effectively creating a new form of encirclement of cities from the rural areas. The Kuomintang fell because its control was concentrated in the nationalist-controlled areas, the developed and affluent coastal industrial cities, while neglecting the countryside. As a result, the Communist Party exploited this oversight, encircling the cities from the rural areas and redistributing land among the peasants. This strategy was the foundation of the CCP's initial rise to power. After years of reform and opening up, the CCP realized it had neglected these rural areas and is now reverting to strengthen control over them. An important consideration is that the countryside, the CCP's origin, could become uncontrollable. Deteriorating relations with the West could compromise reliance on imported food, necessitating vigilance against a potential food crisis. Continuing liberalization as during the reform and opening period would increase dependence on market distribution. Should some regions choose economic activities over agriculture, food imports would become necessary. With the CCP's international relations worsening, the risk of countries refusing to sell food demands strategic planning for the future. However, Shen noted, implementing a collective economy will inevitably lead to some disadvantages such as corruption, inefficiency, and potentially disastrous policy errors that could echo the great famines of the past. This, Shen Gongzi warned, is a serious indication that previous hardships may re-emerge. Now, facing a very high unemployment rate, the CCP is encouraging young people to return to their hometowns and join the collective economy. However, Shen Gongzi believes that these individuals returning to the rural areas will not be better off than if they had remained in the cities to beg. According to Shen, joining the People's Commune essentially equates to a dead end. 7 gray rhinos arrive, China on the brink of a significant financial collapse. The problem of unemployment in China is growing more severe. On mainland social media platforms, a recent post revealed that numerous people in Shanghai are unemployed. The author observed a significant number of people in the park during a weekday. In the comments section, netizens from Shanghai remarked, "Being employed now means you are doing better than many others." Another individual commented on being unemployed near Century Avenue in Pudong. Another social media post expressed disbelief, saying, "Can you believe it?" Despite it being summer, the Ili ice cream factory has ceased operations, putting even ice cream factory workers at risk of unemployment. The current job situation in the country is extremely dire. The post further detailed that Ili's factories nationwide began halting operations sequentially from mid-May, with a formal notice to stop production issued in mid-June. An employee, who has been with Ili for 13 years, stated that this was the first time they had experienced such an extreme situation, worse than any moment during the 3-year pandemic. Comments from netizens predicted that, despite this year's challenges, the future could be even tougher. According to public information, Ili Ice Cream Factory belongs to Ili Group, which is one of China's largest dairy product manufacturers. Leftover children. Soaring unemployment has spawned a new, brutally apt term, leftover children. It describes young people who've spent years grinding away at their studies, only to graduate straight into unemployment. Their lives, like abandoned construction projects, are left unfinished and stalled. People are calling leftover children a chillingly accurate reflection of this harsh reality. Voice of America highlighted this issue on the 3rd, focusing on the unemployment faced by Chinese university graduates. Experts have issued warnings that worsening unemployment could soon lead to social unrest. Educational institutions are under significant political pressure to address the rising unemployment. A college teacher from Hunan explained that all faculty members, whether lecturers or professors, involved in supervising student theses are required to actively engage in monitoring their students' employment status. This involves communications via WeChat or phone and regularly updating forms that track the job search progress of students. Employment outcomes are crucial as they affect both the career progression of leadership and the performance evaluations of faculty. No one is exempt from this responsibility. Renowned demographer Yafu commented that the difficulty in securing jobs and the number of graduates are not directly correlated, rather, the unemployment rate is more closely linked to the overall economic conditions. He provided an example. During the 1929 to 1933 economic crisis in the U.S., despite a population of only 120 million, the unemployment rate soared to 25%. In contrast, in 2023, with a U.S. population of 336 million, the unemployment rate was just 3.63%. The Chinese economy is facing severe challenges, leading to significant employment issues. Furthermore, a financial crisis appears to be looming. A recent crisis at Jiangxi Bank highlights these issues. On July 4, the Nanchang Municipal Financial Regulatory Bureau under the CCP issued a notice following the gathering of individuals at Jiangxi Bank's headquarters and the spread of false information online, actions deemed illegal. The notice cautioned the public against spreading or believing rumors. The issuance of this notice led to widespread comments among netizens that the Communist Party's denial of rumors often signifies a real problem, indicating that Jiangxi Bank was indeed in trouble. 7 gray rhinos now stark realities in China. As we've previously reported, self-media personality Lao Man commented on the pattern observed with local banks issuing warnings of this nature. There should be no doubt about their demise. He advised quick action to possibly preserve some assets and warned that trusting official denials is tantamount to ensuring one's downfall. Some netizens, based on personal experience, strongly advise against using digital yuan. They warn that once money is deposited, it becomes inaccessible. At bank branches, staff claim they have no authority to help, and when customers contact customer service, they are simply redirected back to the branches. Consequently, the money is inexplicably swallowed up. The safety of all types of banks is now in question, and it appears that banks are practically robbing their customers. As a result, the lives of the Chinese people are now full of crises. On the 4th, the news website Xin2 reported on what are termed China's 7 gray rhinos. The first gray rhino is the collapse of the real estate market, the second, the excessive and unusual comprehensive debt of local governments, the third, the publicly funded civil servants whose numbers are so vast that the government avoids conducting surveys or keeping records, increasingly becoming a burden, the fourth, the advent of an aging society that China is unable to support with sufficient pension funds, the fifth, a decline in both manufacturing and employment within the sector, the sixth, the triggered alarm over China's food security, and the seventh, the massive number of unemployed college graduates who have nowhere to go. 2 years ago, these 7 gray rhinos were identified as emerging threats. Today, these challenges have materialized as stark realities across China. Xin2's article cites online discussions indicating that all 7 gray rhinos have now fully emerged, suggesting that China is on the brink of a significant financial collapse. Terrifying tornado strikes Shandong, hundreds of casualties reported. On July 5, around 2:30 p.m., a rare and powerful tornado struck Dongming in Hezi City, Shandong Province. It uprooted trees and overturned vehicles with its formidable strength. Houses were severely damaged, with roofs and external walls being torn away, leaving the streets in complete disarray. According to the local emergency management in Dongming, this catastrophe resulted in 1 fatality and 79 people suffering injuries of various severities. The assessment of further specific damages was still ongoing at that time. However, netizens from the local area have expressed that the real extent of the casualties was even worse than reported. One local from Dongming commented, "A lot of people were injured. In my own neighborhood alone, there could easily be 100 people." They also noted, several villages were almost completely flattened. It's all residential areas. I can't believe only 1 person died, there must be at least 4. Netizens also reported injuries from flying debris. One comment read, "People were hit and injured by flying debris and bled." A resident of Qingwan Street, Liuqiang Village, recounted that in his vicinity, the tornado had torn off almost all the house roofs, with some houses even collapsing. Many local villagers had gone to hospitals to have their wounds treated. He added that it was still raining lightly, his roof was leaking, and the neighborhood was without electricity. Some netizens highlighted environmental concerns, with one person saying, "This is nature's warning, we must take climate change and environmental protection more seriously. Nature is starting to fight back. Philippines demands Beijing pay $1 million in damages over South China Sea clash. The latest China-Philippine clash occurred on June 17 in disputed waters in the South China Sea. Philippine military officials said Chinese Coast Guard personnel carried knives and spears, looted firearms, and deliberately punctured Philippine boats involved in a humanitarian delivery mission to its outpost on the Second Thomas Shoal, also known as Ayungin in the Philippines and Rhinos by Beijing. The shoal, part of the disputed Spratly Islands, has been occupied by a small Philippine Navy contingent aboard a grounded warship that China's Coast Guard and Navy have closely monitored in a years-long territorial standoff. The Chinese regime claims virtually the entire South China Sea. In response, on July 4, Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief General Romeo Brawner Jr. said that the Philippines has demanded 60 million pesos, about $1 million, in damages from the Chinese Communist regime after the confrontation. According to him, the compensation is to cover the 2 Navy vessels rammed by Chinese motorboats in the clash. General Brawner also asked Beijing to return 7 rifles, which he said were seized by Chinese Coast Guard personnel during the confrontation. Furthermore, the Philippine military may also ask China to pay for planned surgery for the Navy officer who lost his right thumb during the conflict when a Chinese Navy vessel rammed his boat. General Brawner's comments come after he and other top military commanders met with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in a closed-door conference. They discussed progress in counterattack efforts and updated plans to defend Philippine territorial interests in the South China Sea. The general added that Mr. Marcos had ordered the Philippine Armed Forces to take steps to de-escalate tensions in the disputed waters. General Brawner warned that Philippine forces would apply the same level of force that would allow them to defend themselves if they were involved in another confrontation with Chinese troops at the shoal. He told reporters at a press conference on June 4, "If a knife is used, for example, our personnel will also use a knife, nothing more, under the concept of proportionality." On July 2, Manila and Beijing agreed to restore trust and rebuild confidence to better control maritime disputes during the 9th meeting of their bilateral consultation mechanism on the South China Sea. The Philippines has been strengthening its ties with neighbors and other countries to counter the Chinese regime's growing aggression in the region. Last month, the Philippines Department of Foreign Affairs announced that Japanese foreign and defense ministers will meet with their Philippine counterparts in Manila on July 8 to discuss bilateral, defense, and security issues affecting the region and exchange views on regional and international issues. Japan previously expressed concern over the latest China-Philippine clash. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.